It is Friday. Happy Freehands Friday. Gene Perry here. It is Freehands Friday, number 98, and we are going to learn a whole bunch about the K-Mix together, and who better to share their experience with us than Mr. Rob Gellner. Rob, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
we're doing a second take here because I freaked out and I pushed a button and everything kind of blew up. So I'm feeling pretty good, Rob. How are you feeling? I'm feeling good about it now.
I'm feeling very good. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a good topic.
Right, we are the two guys to talk about the K-Mix and the Chapman Stick. I feel like they really are like pretty qualified, not because we're experts, but because I can only speak for myself. I have failed so much with the K-Mix. I've tried and come close a lot of times. Anyways, I'm so happy to finally because I'm like a fan of all your posts on the Stickist and stuff like that. So it's fun to just like chill and like look at gear and talk about gear. And we were kidding about this anyways. What else is there to do on a Friday night, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to start my timer here so we don't get too into it. So I'm going to show you how I'm using the K-Mix, and which is more simple in comparison. And then I'm using it as an interface for my mic and for my stick when I'm doing YouTube videos, and then I also use it to record the Chapman Stick into GarageBand, which I've done just a little bit of, and so we can look at that. But then, Rob, we're going to look and see how you've got it set up on your pedal board, and maybe give us kind of a preview of how you're using it. And then we'll come back and I'll kind of finish up how I'm using it, and then we'll come back and do yours kind of second because there's a little bit more going on. How are you using the K-Mix on your pedal board?
So there's my pedal board. So I use it as an interface. So when I hook it up to my Logic Pro, and if I put channels each of the channels acts as an input when you set up your DAW. So channel 1 is input 1 and channel 8 is input 8. So it's really simple. So I've got channels 1 and 2 as my drive signal with the stick coming in. The signal gets sent out to auxiliary 1, goes into my Big Sky, then comes back into channel 3 and 4. So I've got Big Sky coming in on 3 and 4. And then I've got my timeline. I've got drive signal going up at 1 and 2 into auxiliary 2, coming into 5 and 6. So 3 and 4 is my Big Sky, 5 and 6 is my wet signal for the timeline. And then I've got a Mod Duo there too, which I'll eventually want to hook up to the third thing. So that's how I'm using it on my pedal board itself. Yeah. And then I use it as an interface when I'm doing my recording. So it's just basically you plug it into your computer and away you go. It's really simple. I think you found that out, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
It was easy to use. Now you had a couple other little pedals on there as well. Do those come in direct, or do you not route those through the K-Mix?
At this point, I'm not routing them through the K-Mix because, as you pointed out in one of your threads on the stick, it's pedal boards constantly evolve. So I'm trying to make it smaller but do more, right? So to me, the Mod Duo does everything. So I can get rid of those TC Electronics pedals, right? Because I've got a chorus in my Mod Duo, and I've got reverb in my Big Sky and in my Mod Duo, and I've got reverb in the K-Mix if I want to use it too. So it kind of makes some pedals obsolete. So I'm trying to make the board more smaller and efficient. But then you see something out there, like I'm getting an SP2 as well. Yeah. Just because I find that I get very little signal with my passive pickups on my SG12, so I need to. The K-Mix gives me enough signal, and that's great. But if I ever want to plug it into a guitar amp or something, I need my K-Mix.
Yeah. Yeah, I would concur. And really, there's nothing better than a step about, really, because just with the options that you have for EQ and for volume, and then switching. So you talked to Greg at Interlochen about the step about, did you?
Yeah, he was definitely he's a big advocate of it, and it's a great piece of gear. It's just that being Canadian, you pay whatever you pay, we pay 30% or 40% more. So a step about is probably $800, $700 down your way, and it's gonna cost me about $1,100 plus tax and duty. So I'm paying almost double.
Yeah.
So the SP2 is a preamp with some EQ in it. So I thought, well, it's a quarter the price, so I'll go with that to start with. Because as far as routing goes, I can route stuff using the K-Mix.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good to have options, and you have a lot of options, which is what I'm seeing. And certainly having those TC electronic pedals while you have the Mod Duo as well. You can kind of have, like, you're in IT, you can have like a production instance and a UAT instance. And you've got two environments that you can kind of work with, right? So yeah. So that's kind of nice. Because the Mod Duo, I mean, really, you're done. Like, you could just roll out there with a Mod Duo, plug in two cables go out to two powered speakers. You can have separate mixes. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing.
Theoretically, yes. Yeah. And I haven't had I bought it a while ago and I played with it a little bit, but I really need to sit down and spend a couple days just playing around with it. Mm-hmm. And when I start recording my Stick album someday in the future, then I'll spend time to make patches for each song, because as an arranger, I like to make every song sound different. So
yeah, and we talked about like presets for the K-Mix as well. So there's a lot of ways to save time for now. Anyways, so listen, let me change the view here. Okay, so I'm looking at my K-Mix right now, and also what I've got showing is the editor. So basically, I've got my microphone coming into channel 2 here, and then I've got my Chapman Stick coming into channel 1 right here. And for the EQ, you've got it basically breaks down into high, mid, and low. And so this is kind of how I'm running my Chapman Stick right now, and so I'll play now for just a moment. So that gets a nice hot signal. Thumbs up. Okay, I got coming from a keyboardist that also plays trumpet. The little Bach is always welcome, I'm sure, right? Wow.
Absolutely.
Your video's coming in much better now. Your video's coming in much better. Yeah, this is looking up. All our struggles and strife that we had in our previous.
The gremlins are gone.
The gremlins are gone. Yeah, and for me, I'm like, hey, I got a good stick sound too. So yeah, it's really nice. It's if I was playing this out live, or certainly if I was recording, I wouldn't be using one of my channels for my microphone. So I'd have separation between the channels 1 and channel 2. Right, and I just by touching that mic level right there, I just dropped the mic level. That's what I might have done last time. So I would run these in channels 1 and 2, and then if you're using the editor, it's just so easy to tweak the EQ for this. You've got separate compression and gating and routing, and obviously right now I'm just using one channel. So that's the context that I'm using it in right now. Pretty simple, relative to a paddleboard. So Rob, maybe you can. Maybe we can look at the board again and just kind of see how you're doing it or how you're setting it up.
Just as far as how I...
Yeah, so let's talk about routing. And yeah, let's get the soft step in the Mod Duo if it's okay. Let's see the lower portion. That's great right there.
So like I want this. This is MIDI compatible too. So if I got a MIDI expander, I could use this. So right now, if you kind of watch the see how I'm changing the presets on the Big Sky there? They're like whipping around.
Right.
And I can actually change the volume of the mix. If you see it says mix, so if I that pre-delay, but I could set it up so that instead of me having to do this with my feet when I'm playing, I can hook it up and just go to push that thing where it says K-Mix, and then I can actually control the volume of each different channel. So that could be channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I can control the volume, or I can mute each one too.
Gotcha.
So if I have, so it's just, and we need these things when we're playing a stick. So if I'm taking my hand off to do this, suddenly it's not good.
Yeah, it's not even an option.
And when you had a bald spot, the last thing you want to do is bend over and give people a target to throw stuff at.
You're speaking my language, man. And the whole MIDI component, the MIDI that I'm doing right now is limited to changing channels and tap tempo and expression. So it's pretty simple. But I suppose as a keyboardist, you're probably a little more familiar in the MIDI realm. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I used to kind of grew up with in music school. We had a MIDI controlling all these different synths and stuff, right? So, but now it's all like these are all CC messages. So you just have to do a little bit of programming with the soft step editor to tell it where to go, and so yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So my ultimate goal is to be able to keep my hands on my stick and not have to touch the pedals with my fingers.
Right.
Because it can be distracting. And it's really annoying when you're trying to change the volume. I'm sure a lot of stick players, but when they're playing, they're doing this with let's get the mix up.
I have a corner.
If you got an expression pedal.
Yeah, I have a corner of my pedal board where I have my expression roller, and
yes,
and I have to have my shoe off to control it. The way my foot rests on it, I need to use like my big toe to actually kind of wrap around it and control the expression. So that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So yeah, like with guitar and with bass, certainly you can have a free hand and be able to kind of maybe roll off the lows on your bass amp, or if you're a guitarist, maybe you reach back and for your solo you want to turn it up, and then turn it back down when you're done. But with a Chapman Stick, there's no such thing. Like you're totally focused, and so that your feet become almost like an extension of the instrument.
Yes. Yeah, we need more limbs and appendages.
That's right.
And we don't have that many.
Well, yeah, that's why the feet have to do it. So let's walk us through each channel here on the K-Mix to start with. Actually, let's talk about the signal path on your pedal board. As long as we're here, let's maybe give us a quick, like a quick overview of how these things route.
Okay, so I've just got the stick coming in. You can see the blue one. Maybe it's hard to see, but the stick's coming in here. Auxiliary 1 is going to here.
Gotcha.
And then it goes into channel 3, 4. Then this this is going into auxiliary 2 and coming back in on channel 5 and 6. So then eventually I'll have this hooked up to 7 and 8. Right now I've got my computer. I use Drummer. Drummer feature in Logic to play a lot of stuff. So I have Drummer coming in on 8. So when I'm practicing, I don't like using a metronym. I'd rather use.
Gotcha.
So
okay, so let me show people kind of a little bit. I'm showing people the back of the K-Mix. So we've got 8 channels over here. So when Rob is talking about AUX 1, 2, and 3. These are set up. You've got like a main out, which is channels 1 and 2, but then you've also got AUX out, which is so you can route that to channels 3 and 4, right? So these outs 3 and 4 are going to his Big Sky, it sounds like, and then channels 5 and 6 are going to the timeline. So those are routing out of the board, and then you can route back. So he's doing that in stereo. So while that will eat up a lot of your channels, that will also give you a delicious ambient stereo sound. And I'm a big fan of that. So, okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that people knew what you were talking about. So coming out of the KMix and then back into the KMix, and so that works out really nicely. And so then the TC electronics, those are going direct, right? The instrument's going directly into that.
I haven't got them into the signal chain at this point, but I need to figure a way to figure where I want them. But
sure. Well, it seems like the board itself in its form has some contingency. So if the KMix became unavailable, you'd still have some reverb. For any reason, the KMix, the reverb became unavailable, you could use the KMix, that sort of thing. So
yeah. But the nice thing about the KMix that I like is that when you have a pedal chain, one goes into the next, goes into the next, goes into the next, goes into the next. So if you want to skip one, you can bypass it, I guess. But some pedals don't have bypass, so whatever is ahead of it gets processed after. Mm-hmm. Where with this, because I can send it somewhere else, I can process it separately, right?
Right. And with recording, so now we did look at it briefly, but maybe you can show us again how you're setting up and doing your recording. So as I recall, you had when you plugged the KMix into Logic there.
Yeah. So it's really this is my DAW, right? So you can see that, I guess, right?
Yeah, I can see it. Perfect.
So if I want to add track audio, I add 6 tracks because I've got my 6 tracks being used, right? So I've added my 6 tracks. If I go into input 1, so I just select input 1. So if I go input, see how there's 8 inputs on there? The 8 inputs are the inputs 1 to 8 on the KMix. Mm-hmm. So now there's my stick dry left melody side, bass side. This is my big sky right side. This is my big sky left side. This is my timeline right.
Gotcha. So you've totally integrated those pedals into the mix there, and you can adjust the effect levels
without doing anything. So now if I arm the tracks, and I'm gonna, you don't really need to listen to them, but so now so I'm getting my dry signal plus I'm getting all my mix signals. So what I'm hearing on my headphones, I'm actually hearing on my program.
Gotcha.
So now I can. So and then you asked me about EQing. I always EQ at this point, right? So maybe I want to make my delay, my reverb. I want to pan it hard, not hard, right? And with my delay, I might not only have to do that. So my dry signal is coming in down the center, but I can mess around with it.
Sure. So and this to me was something that was very interesting and new, because basically, because you've got it on your pedal board, right? Whereas I'm not using it on my pedal board. I'm just using it on my desk, like next to my my laptop. But what's interesting here is that I'm doing EQ just purely from my board, whereas you're running the instrument directly into the KMix, so you're getting a nice hot mix, and then you're able to separate out stereo effects on different channels, and then you're EQing it based on what you're getting into Logic. So that's what I call scalable architecture, right? Because you can add EQ prior to it going into Logic, via the KMix, or you can add it in Logic. There's no ends to the options here.
Yeah. It's kind of really you plug and play, and it's super easy. So that's why I use it, and then you set your levels on your mixer, and it affects your levels on here too. So it's just simple. And in that case, it'd be nice to have it on my desk instead of on my pedal board, but I can always take it off. But I got a Velcro to my pedal board right now, so.
So, and a quick question about that: are you using Velcro?
Yeah, I Velcroed it on.
Okay.
Yeah, so because I leave it on most of the time. And actually, I have the pedal board almost sitting vertical most of the time instead of sitting on the ground because it's kind of almost an effects rack, which again is why I would like to have foot control. If I could literally have everything far away and just have my soft step in front of me and have everything behind me if I really wanted to.
I'm wanting to. I'm wishing I had a little more real estate on my board because. I'm thinking I get all these great sounds in my room when I'm playing alone, but like, wouldn't it be great to like capture that and record it? And it's just so easy with the way you've got it set up right now. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's super easy.
Yeah. So then I suppose what? And
if I was smart, I would just set up a template.
Right. So yeah, because you can save mixes in the. Well, I suppose you'd be saving things in Logic as well, right? You'd be saving configuration settings.
Yeah, I could just save it. Just make a lot. Yeah.
So many options.
So the connection's getting slightly choppy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we've hit on all the things that we wanted to hit on. We wanted to talk about using the KMix just to record, and you can use the KMix, for the stick directly into like a powered speaker, and you're golden. Like that'll be good enough for a gig. You'd be fine. But as a part of the pedal board, and then also integrating it with your kind of recording process or workflows is really clever, and that's something that I'll kind of be working on, how to get the sound of my pedal board into the actual into my DAW. And I'm using it in a much more simple application, but it's very functional. It's also very lightweight. When I'm done with it, I basically just kind of slide it underneath my monitor here, and then like it's so easy, like when was the last time you had a mixer that was that small? You could do that. So what advice, I suppose, would you have for stickists that are thinking about a KMix? Like, give us some pros and cons on what your thoughts are about it.
I don't see any negatives, really. You just got to be careful your trim levels aren't too high. I find that it distorts. That's what I've been finding. If the trim level set too high on the bass side, it distorts. So you got to keep it down. There is a learning curve with the KMix. Just like I'm kind of learning, get your trim levels set because the faders all do different things depending on the buttons you're pushing. You really have to kind of think about, if I push the headphone thing, it affects this, and if I push the trim thing, it affects this. And if you might have the level perfect and hit the wrong button, and then all of a sudden, instead of changing the fader up and down, you're changing the trim level, and then all of a sudden, you're not getting the signal that you want, right? So
that's right.
So it's just a learning curve, right? Because I kept wondering, like, how come when I'm pushing the volume fader up, but I'm not getting enough volume, and then I realized the trim was set too low.
And
so
I had that exact same learning experience with the trim level.
Yeah.
And then also with 48 volts. So you've got channels 1 and 2 that support, plus 48 volts for line and mic levels. And that was another kind of curve for me. I had to kind of enable those to make sure I had a nice hot signal for mics.
Yeah.
I suppose some of the pros and the cons that I have is similar to what you're talking about, and that is that on the KMix you have this kind of shift, kind of right-click functionality. So you can it's easy to kind of miss, or forget that you've selected the headphone section down here, and you're adjusting your headphone levels, and you forget to depress that, or you've got it set to the VU setting, and you forget to move that as well. So there's, like you said, there's a learning curve, and it takes a good long while to get not only used to like how things work, but also just kind of the feel of it, right? Like you're kind of manipulating it with your foot, actually pretty, with some expertise, I might add. And so you just have to get kind of used to working with the the pads and the rotors and stuff like that. So
yeah.
That's my con. And that's just like with anything. As soon as you get something new, you kind of dread it. You're like, who's this to learn how this thing works and how it doesn't work and what I do and don't like about it. But the pros certainly, the size is so great. The size is nice and small, and it's got just enough features on it where it's worthwhile in like so many different applications. I just like having it. It's just.
Well, and I'm sure that most of us guys hate reading manuals, so we try not to read the manual. But after you've had it for a while, read the manual, and it's like, oh, if I push the shift button and then I hit the channel strip, I can actually mute it. Because I was wondering how to do certain things, or, so as you said, you fail, and you fail a lot, and that's okay, because failing helps you to learn, and if you learn something, it's worth failing, right?
And that's how we got here this evening.
Yeah, no, that's so it's all good.
It's all good. That's all good. Well, listen, Rob, we'll end on a high note. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I'm such a fan of the stuff that you're posting on the Stickist, and I always look forward to your kind of opinions and just your kind of journey with the Chapman Stick's really fun to kind of learn along with. So thanks for sharing all that information. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for what you do for the community. I know everyone appreciates everything you've done, so keep doing it.
Cool, man. I will definitely. It's so much fun, right? So hopefully we'll be talking again, and hopefully we'll get Rob back in on another session. And I hope that you have a great weekend and that you actually get to do some playing.
So will be.
All right.
And you too.
All right. Take care, Rob. Bye for now.
Take care, Gene. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.